Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to the Founder Spotlight event with Raanan Cohen, founder and CEO of Bringg, a unicorn in the delivery management platform space. Hi, Raanan.
Hi, everyone.
Raanan is also the author of the best-selling novel, Just a Little Bit More. We're going to talk about it later on. The book takes you behind the scenes of the Israeli high-tech industry, um, revealing a world full of passion, egos, intrigues, and conspiracies. And also, this is a unique opportunity to learn how top founder creates real value through innovation, resilience, and strategic vision. And we'll discuss entrepreneurship, VCs, myths, and the challenges of building a successful unicorn. So once again, thank you for joining. My name is Eran Savir. I'm the founder and managing partner of Savir Ventures. We're focused on investing in seed stage AI, digital, and commerce. I have a technical background, and before I became an investor, I was a founder myself. I founded 3 startups, did 2 exits, and in fact, Savir is my is the third fund that I manage. Two more quick notes before we start. Just a quick disclaimer. The content presented today is not directed to any investors or potential investors and does not constitute an offer to sell or a solicitation for or an offer to buy any securities. Just get the legal things off the table. One last housekeeping note. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box at the bottom of the screen and also ask questions there in the chat. We'll address the questions later during the webinar. So feel free to do so. Now that we have this off the table, let's get started. Raanan, please introduce yourself briefly.
So hi, my name is Raanan Cohen. In the last 20 years, I've been in the tech scene, which I found myself by coincidence at the age of 30 at a junior position in a startup, which I've worked for like 3 years. And following that, I founded my first company, Mobile Max, a telecom software solution platform, a company which I took public. 8 years of a roller coaster. We can talk about it later. And after that, founded Bringg together with Lior Sion, a SaaS delivery logistics management platform for large enterprises, customers like Walmart, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and others around the world. We raised over $100 million of funding. The company reached unicorn status. I sold my shares a few years ago, and since then, most of my time is mentoring or supporting early stage entrepreneurs voluntarily. And in the last several years, I've been passionate about writing. And as of 3 months ago, I officially became an author, where on September 1st, my book was published, Just a Little Bit More. It's a fiction based and inspired by true events about the behind the scenes of the Israeli tech, the dark sides of entrepreneurship. It's a new startup of mine, new passion, beyond all my expectations. It's on the top of the bestsellers list since the second week, and it's taken a life of its own, and we can talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Also have the book here. Yeah, this is the automatic background removes it. It's very interesting. I loved reading it, and everyone I think should read it. But we can talk about it, and we will talk about it later. But let's start with going back a few years ago. what inspired you to begin your entrepreneurial journey, and how did it eventually lead to founding your first startup, MobileMax?
Okay, so the main incentive was fear. I wasn't I don't have a technical education. I didn't serve in one of the tech units. So I learned accounting at the university, and just by chance I found a position as a project manager in a startup when I was 30. I've been there for like 3 years. It was a very, very successful startup back then in early 2000 called Cashew, founded by several Talpion veterans, an amazing team, and a very successful solution in the telecom space. And that's where I practically opened my door into tech in general. And during the 3 years over there, I pretty much had the imposter syndrome, feeling that coming from the outside, I don't really level up to the standard. And eventually, all of us have dreams in the drawer. And when I felt that, okay, I transitioned into a sales role, I didn't feel that I'm performing good enough. And I kind of felt that, okay, I have nothing to lose because I'm probably on the way out. Let's just jump ship and start my first venture. Back then, I was traveling a lot for work, and we were using various solutions for roaming calls. It was very expensive, pre-FaceTime and all these voice over IP solutions. And the idea was to develop an app or a service that will enable a reduced call services. Smartphones started being introduced into the market, and this was the beginning of the idea. It rolled out into like a platform that unifies the various mobile phones and operating systems. Back then, it was a jungle. Today, the mobile world is divided into Android and iPhone, and that's practically it. Back then, there were so many phones and sub operating system, and it was a nightmare. And we developed a platform where you can develop once and deploy it on the various phones, and we sold it to the telecom carriers. So going back to how it started, I felt my back against the wall, and I just said, okay, I'm going to start my startup. I had no idea how to do it and what I'm doing. And my lucky break was that two VPs from this startup that I started at, when they heard I'm leaving to start my own startup, they said, okay, we want to be your first checks. We want to give you your break, and we believe in you. And using this credibility,
So
I
they were
managed
the first investors.
first investors, and with this stamp, I went to other angels that kind of appreciated these guys that were veterans in the industry and that they know me. And so one check led to another, and I got my first seed money. And from that, the company took off.
So you spent I guess few years there. Just that was the period before Bringg. So and then I don't want to spend too much time on that startup, but I'm want to switch gears and talk about a little bit about Bringg. So Bringg is a unique company that kind of reshaped the delivery management platform space. So what happened between the startups? What inspired you to pursue that specific concept?
Yeah, so if MobileMax was based on my traveling and looking for solutions for mobile carriers, so the company took off and we did an IPO and everything was amazing until the black swans came into the industry in the form of iPhone and Android, and the entire value proposition of the company just completely disappeared. And in a couple of years, we went from IPO and glam to zero. It's a total huge story behind it with a lot of insights. So after that, for a few months, I was looking for other stuff, and it came back again to sports, running, and pizza. So we're talking about like a decade ago, almost 2013. Services like Uber and Get Taxi started to take off, which revolutionized the ride-sharing taxi industry. Suddenly, you could have a convenient service. You could see, you'd have transparency. The service providers could have an efficient way to manage the service. And using that, like running one way to the office, taking a get back, things like that. The question I looked at is, okay, why is this kind of service isn't available when I order a pizza and it's late and no one knows where it is? And when I order a package, or when I order a technician or a cable guy, and at the rest of the areas where today it's more straightforward, but back then, other than Uber, Amazon, and the new guys, the new tech guys, the rest of the world didn't have this kind of capabilities. So the vision behind Bringg was that, okay, e-commerce is taking off. Back then, e-commerce was still under 5% of the entire retail world. Today, it's more than 20%, but it's still the beginning. So, I mean, from you don't need to be a scientist to forecast that e-commerce will take off. Now, e-commerce, okay, it's online commerce, but it relies on logistics. And today, probably even the number one decision parameter when ordering a product is the delivery. So if I order these reading glasses on Amazon, and Amazon provides same-day delivery, while Walmart, it will take 2 or 3 days, Walmart lost the business. So looking at these differences and understanding that e-commerce is taking off, I envision that these delivery capabilities of Amazon and Uber and the new guys will become a standard. Just like in the pizza world, where 30 minutes or less is kind of the standard of the pizza world, this will happen in the rest of e-commerce. And the big difference is that these companies, these huge companies, Fortune 5,000 companies or 1,000 companies, they are not tech companies. They are not like Amazon, and they are not like Uber. So they don't have the innovation and capabilities to level up with these standards. So there is a place for someone who will enable them. And that's what Bringg is. Bringg is a SaaS, a software platform that enables companies that have large-scale logistics and deliveries to have similar capabilities as Amazon. Meaning, when someone makes an order, you need some kind of brain to know which is the optimized channel to deliver it. You need the brain to manage it, to manage returns, etc., etc., etc. So, and Lior Sion, which was back then the CTO of Get Taxi, and we know each other from our marathons, is probably the number one CTO in the world to build something like that. And so this was the vision, and this is where we started.
By the way, I see a similarity between the two experiences you had as a founder for both companies, and that is that you had like a personal experience, like a personal pain that you experienced, which is like a consumer experience. However, you built like a B2B to C solution. I wonder how important do you think it is as a founder and also as an investor maybe to have like a founder that has this unique kind of domain expertise or pain or feels the pain in a personal way and relates to it in order to build like a successful company. How important it is?
So this is, as an investor, angel investor, this is one of the first questions I like to ask. First of all, because I like romance and I like to hear the stories. How did you think of it and how did you come of it? But I think this is not something, a personal passion of mine. I think many investors and VCs, when you see a founder that came across a problem or an opportunity, and especially in my cases, it wasn't in my domain expertise, but in some cases, it happens when an engineer in a certain space finds an issue and has the passion to solve it. I think this is a great starting point. Today I talk a lot with young guys, and many of them they look into entering the entrepreneurship world, where they say, okay, let's look for the place where there's the most money, or we think there's the most money, and look for an opportunity over there. In theory, it's a great method. I believe in personal involvement. So if something really bothers you,
In passion.
and you have the passion for it, that's the secret sauce.
Great. So we're gonna jump to this in a second, but just to complete the discussion about Bringg. I mean, you meet a lot of founders, but it's not quite often that you meet a founder that built a unicorn. So, one of the questions that I wrote to myself is like, what does it actually mean to build a unicorn? What is needed? What are the strategies and principles do you think that is critical in scaling a business to a unicorn status?
Yes, so here I can compare it with my first company. Okay, I think first it comes down to the addressable market and where you are in the market. So we were very fortunate to get into the water when the big waves came in. Okay, so this is something that sometimes we don't have much influence on, but what we do have influence on is building the right team to support it. And at Bringg, pretty early on, we brought along guys that it's kind of tricky, because let's say you post a seed round or post A round, you're 10 people or 20 people or 30 in the team, and you're growing pretty fast, and now you need to recruit someone at this point after seed who will be hands-on. He will do the, let's say, a sales manager, he will do the sales, but he has the potential of managing and building a global sales team in 3 to 6 months. Things are happening very fast. So the way we did it in Bringg, in Mobile Max, I think we did it bottom up. So we recruited people that we thought that could jump into these places. At Bringg, again, I think we had the privilege also to attract this kind of talent. We looked for people who have already been there. I was fortunate to have like Isaac Buchnick. He built operations for Wix, SimilarWeb, Yotpo. He's been to several unicorns. He was like our 10th employee. He came very early on, but he had I would say the will and the passion to roll up the sleeves and start earlier. Tamir Gottfried, our CRO, he already managed large-scale operations. He came in when we were, I think, under $1 million revenue, and he already been in the tens of millions. So he came in being his own team. He was the sales guy, the pre-sales guy. He was everything, understanding that he will build the team. So when growing fast, if you manage to get these kind of building blocks, people that have the capabilities and maybe already did it, but have the passion to build it again, this is a very good infrastructure on the team side. On the funding side, you also need to build some kind of a mechanism that will enable you to get a large-scale funding pretty fast without too much overhead. We can dive into it, and then with most of our funding rounds were inbound. So I've managed to build some kind of system. If it's interesting, we can discuss this. How can we do a funding round almost every 3 or 4 months, which double the value of the company and more money coming in with minimal overhead of specific rounds?
Sure, let's talk about it right now. I mean, that
Okay, that sounds
super
good.
interesting and of course appealing. I mean, how
Yeah.
do you build? And also, I mean, early on, did you already know, like at seed stage, that that's gonna be like a super big company? Because I mean, the 10th employee should also believe in your vision that this is gonna be like super big. So I guess it means convincing these employees, but I guess also investors that the train has left the station and you should run.
Yeah,
How do
so
you
I
do
think
that?
I think it's like running a marathon or an ultra marathon. First of all, yes, I believed in it. Now we all know the statistics. It's not enough that you believe in it because you're building like an iron dome for a target that you assume will be somewhere in 3 to 5 to 7 years when the company matures. So the big question, and I think from the investor side, this is the number one question also when I'm looking at the venture. Do I believe that the market is big and is growing, big and growing?
Yeah.
So convincing people that e-commerce will be big and growing, I think it's pretty trivial. The second argument was that e-commerce relies on logistics and deliveries. It's also pretty straightforward. The third one, this was the more tricky part, is that there will be a new standard. If you remember, we live in Israel. In Israel, when you order something, you sometimes get it in 1 week. In the US, it's not acceptable. I'm an Amazon Prime user since they launched, and I remember how it started. I think Amazon Prime, when it's launched, it was a revolution. 48-hour delivery.
Yeah.
So we see the delivery time shrinking. Then it's next day, then it's same day. Now we have 2-hour delivery in certain things, and etc. So the third element of the argument is that delivery standards will be improved. And the fourth one is that the companies that are out there delivering stuff, they don't have the capabilities to develop these kind of standards.
No,
So
but I guess when you're in seed stage, I mean, most founders would believe that this is their case as well, right? It's a growing
yes, so yeah,
market. It's
each
demand will surge and they will
yeah.
be there at times. But still, how did you manage to build that specific momentum around your specific company to get like inbound, for example,
Yeah,
inbound investment
yeah.
requests?
Okay,
That's
so yeah,
quite that's quite unique.
yeah, so first, yeah, you have to believe, and it has to be authentic, because one thing that investors are good, I don't, I'm known, how would I say it? It's not that I have, I can't say many good things about VCs and investors, right? One thing they are good at is they have a good sense of, are you authentic? Do you really believe it? So you need to really believe in it. Okay, but now that we put that you believe in it, how do you create this structure? So this is something that I learned during my first company, Mobile Max. We became public, and then you start a relationship with analysts when you're a public company. Every month or 3 months, you talk with them, you give your forecast, and you have a relationship. Now, what happens is that once you're on the radar of an investor, and month after month he gets to follow you, you kind of build trust. So and this is something I strongly recommend to every entrepreneur that I work with. Let's say you finished your seed round. Now you have funding for 12 or 18 months, right? Naturally, you would say, okay, let's put aside all these investors' talks. It's a waste of time. Let's focus on the business, put it aside. Let's start it in 9 months. This is what I did in my first company, and this is what I changed in my second company. I strongly recommend that as a CEO founder, you invest 20 to 30% of your time with investors, hopefully not your board, your future investors. So once you did your seed round, map out all the A round candidates, reach out to them, say, hi, I'm the new seed guy. I'm still too young for you guys, but I want to get on your radar. Maybe listen and hear from you. What would be your KPIs? Is this something that you're interested in? We're in the logistics industry, SaaS, whatever. Check, yes. What would be the KPIs that you would say would interest you for an A round? And most of them they talk about it. They say, okay, you will need maybe $2 million ARR. You will need this kind of team, and you write it down. And then I would conclude and say, hey, I have this monthly board update that I sent to my board and my investors. It's a deck with all the KPIs and everything. Would you be interested? I'm happy to share it with you. 100% of the investors say yes.
Of course.
So now I have this guy, and I map out as many as I can, and every month I send it to them. Now, what happened in Bringg, that maybe 5 or 6 months later, we were still too early for the A round, but one of these 20 investors that I'm interacting with, he's starting to see a trend. He's saying, okay, it's 6 months in. I can see that they are growing every month. I can see that what he's doing is actually happening. I mean, obviously there are bumps, but in general, I like what I see. And you know what? I'm willing to step in even before there's like a term that it will grow into the valuation.
Yeah.
Meaning, maybe in KPIs terms, we're still a few months away, but the investor says, okay, in order to get the deal, I will go in now. And suddenly you get a call and say, hey, we want to give you a term sheet or discuss with you a term sheet. Now, once you have this in your hand, this is magic, because now I'm a good guy, right?
Everyone, yeah, that's like a classic FOMO.
Exactly. So what a good guy does when something like this happens, you call all the other 19 and say, hey, guys, we have some kind of a relationship. I want you to know I've received a term sheet. I'm considering going for it. If you're interested, I know it's still early, let me know. Usually, a few of them already are also interested. And now you have the ideal situation where there are a few investors that want to come in, and suddenly you have a round. Okay, now you complete the round. Now you have money for 18 or 24 months. But continue the same idea. Map out the B round, start a relationship with them, and be very transparent. It's okay if you have bad months. It's okay. Once they see this kind of open and they get to know you, the funding round becomes a matter of a couple of weeks or very short, because when you meet a new investor, when you say, okay, I'm starting a funding round now, they want to have some mileage with you, and it takes time. That's why it takes 3, 4, sometimes 6 months. It takes time. If you manage to build this mileage along the way, this is ideal. It's ideal for everyone. It's ideal for an investor, and it's ideal for the startup. And suddenly, there's no real big overhead of a specific funding round where you manage to spread it along the ride.
I couldn't agree more. I think that having like a monthly email with an update that you send to all investors who are interested is like the right way to maintain the relationship. And from the investor's perspective, who gets like a bunch of these every beginning of every month, it feels like we're building a relationship, even though I'm just reading an email from many startups. So it allows me as an investor to follow. And I think that this is one of the most underestimated tools for free that investors have, and many investors don't use, unfortunately. But I agree that this is one of the most probably efficient tools. Yeah.
Yes. Now, just another word. I think it's easier said than done, because like entrepreneurs that I work with, sometimes they send it, and I call them and say, hey, you don't. It sounds like a pitch. You don't need to pitch. I'm already in. I invested. When you send an update, I'm on your side. You don't need to sell me. You don't need to market it. You can write it as is.
Yeah.
And again, investors have this sense. And the problem is, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, we are used to sell and to pitch, which is great. And you need some kind of a switch in your head when you're providing this internal update, because it has a different flavor. And when you take this kind of format and provide it externally, they know the investor that you're looking at for the future rounds, they know how to realize and appreciate that you are giving them. It's like raw material. It's not an investor's deck. It's an internal board update with it's not all shiny and nice, and they know to appreciate it. So again, it takes some mental work to have the openness to say, okay, I'm gonna send it to you. I know everyone knows a marathon is not smiles and kisses for 42 kilometers. Along the journey, you have some tough minutes, or even more than minutes, and investors also know it. But eventually, you can't bullshit your way. If it won't take off and it won't make it, you won't be able to raise funding anyway. If you will have ups and downs along the way and you will manage to overcome them, it's even a strength point. So you don't need to hide it. It's even better to show, okay, when we started, we tried to open a new market, we recruited a new VP, it didn't work out. We managed to overcome. This is a strength signal. So I highly encourage to be open and to share. You'll get that back when the relationship grows.
Yeah, I agree. And my recommendation for founders, by the way, is to have in this like monthly email at least the following two sections. One is what's working, like 2, 3 bullet points, and the second one is what's not working, like 2, 3, because I'm sure there are things that are not working, and we need to review them. It's very difficult to build a startup. There are many things that are not working. So, but I mean, we talked about building a startup, and we have on the call, I guess, founders and other type of participants, but probably also maybe some people who are considering to become an entrepreneur, and then before we start talking about like VCs and all these things that we have kind of talked about before, for those considering the leap to entrepreneurship, like what do you think are the most important qualities or like the mindsets needed to start and succeed as a founder? Like what would be your advice?
Okay, so here, I'm living the imposter syndrome all my life, right? So I started working in an adult's job at the age of 30. I came into the tech world with no background. If you would have told me, do you see yourself as CEO, entrepreneur, or whatever? I would bet you that I will become an NBA player before this will happen. So totally, and I still remember it. I totally didn't have that feeling that it's in my cards. So from that note, I think that practically almost everyone can become an entrepreneur. And when I talk to the young guys, I tell them, you are an entrepreneur already. You are the entrepreneur of this amazing thing called your life. An entrepreneur doesn't mean that you have to build a startup. You can be a teacher, you can be a banker, you can have any kind of career and be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur meaning living out of passion, being proactive, always trying to do more. So being an entrepreneur is a mindset that I recommend everyone should take on, which practically means, okay, it's up to me. I need to take action all the time. Now, being a tech entrepreneur, this is something that, I think you must come to it from passion. I mean, it's not an opportunistic, and also from on average, we know the numbers. So I think that the magic drive is passion, because all these journeys, all these marathons have one thing in common across the board. Every story, they come to points along the journey where things become very tough. And when things become tough, if you're not super passionate about it, you would probably give up and think that, okay, that's a dead end. And the magic sauce to overcome these walls, this dead end, is passion. So if you have a passion for something, I think all the rest you can learn along the way. And this is also my recommendation to anyone who has a passion about building something. You need to jump in and do it, especially today where there's so much support in the ecosystem. There's incubators and there's podcasts. Like right now, I jumped into a new industry, the book industry. I had no idea what's going on. It's very similar to startups. You have a few big publishers, like a few big VCs, thousands of dreamers or whatever. And I started listening to podcasts and I started writing to people and asking questions. So the tools are the easy part. and there will always be reasons why not to start and why to wait. There will always be good reasons for that. I think these are not the answers you should look for. Do I have 100% of my? No. A tech entrepreneur, by definition, it's a journey where you start and you don't know. There are many big black holes. The number one question, I think, is if you have the passion, because you need a very strong stomach. And by the way, the book, my number one reason for writing the book, I know everyone loves the fighting between the entrepreneur and the VCs and all the stuff about that. The number one reason was not that, was the other part where I tried to surface the behind the scenes of the entrepreneur, the mental and emotional issues. Everyone talks about the roller coaster, but it's much more than that. So if you're going on that journey, you need to know it will hurt, and you need a very strong stomach. Just like if you're going to run a marathon, you need to understand your legs will hurt, you will have probably injuries and things like that. So this is something you need to be aware of. It's not it's not even problems that you should try to avoid. Okay, it's okay. This is a case, maybe it's reality that you need to address, not problems you need to avoid. You need to understand, just like in the winter there will be storms, in your journey you will have more than certain moments. You'll have a lot of moments where you'll double doubt yourself, you'll be lonely. And when these moments come, I think it's good that you say, okay, I remember that when I started the journey, someone told me that after 30 kilometers, I would feel like that. So this is what I'm feeling now. So it doesn't make it the feeling better, but it kind of gives you perspective. So you need to be aware of that you will have these kind of moments. And if you have the passion together with the stomach, then these moments are bearable.
Awesome. Raanan, let's talk about VCs. I mean,
Why? We had fun until now.
yeah, so I guess only people who were either on the founder side or on the VC side or on both really understand how these things work. And let's talk about it for a few minutes. So, how do you recommend founders approach to approach VCs, and what are the things you wish you knew earlier before you started working with VCs, for example, at Bringg?
Okay, so first, I want to put it on the VCs. They are great VCs and they are great investors. And I have very good friends who are VCs. I even have family who is a VC. Not everyone is perfect. And so VCs in general, it's like mankind. There are all types. Now, okay, what's important to understand is that there is a fundamental conflict of interests between the VCs and the entrepreneur and the employees, right? VCs, the model, they invest in a few, sometimes dozens of startups from one batch. Most of these startups will just vanish. Some of them will manage to return the investment, and hopefully there will be one home run. There will be maybe one unicorn or mega unicorn, which will return the entire fund and will make everyone happy. This is the model, and this is what they are trying to achieve. Now, what that means is that they need to take risks that comply with this kind of target. So let's say I'm a VC, I invest in 10 companies. Now I have 4 startups that grew from seed to 100 or 200 million valuation.
Raanan, but I'm sorry to jump in. I mean,
Yeah.
you're kind of explaining the obvious. I mean, people know the stats
Okay.
and how this works. But really, I mean, there is the veto rights and the board members and the seats and the ownership. So, let's talk about this. I mean, things that you wish you knew, you need to pay attention to. because that is kind of the result of what you just explained. Like this is how.
Yeah. Okay, you know, the sad answer is that most entrepreneurs either don't have the privilege to choose, or when you're very successful and you're focused on the business, your mind is more on the business, and you know, you kind of leave this behind, and then you also don't do your due diligence. But let's talk about what you can do. So things that are really important, for example, that sound trivial. For example, the lawyer, the company's legal advisor. In many VCs, when they come in, they try to appoint their own or their recommended legal advisor. It comes in many ways. He's a great partner in a great law firm. We can get you a great deal, etc., etc., etc. And just like with the government and with things going on in the country, if you have a legal advisor that is on your side, let's say, then you practically control the company. Now, I don't say that for the CEO and the entrepreneur, find someone who will be on your side. No, you just need someone who is fair and won't be controlled by someone else. And this is very important. We saw, you know, things happening now with Open Web, Nadav Shoval, and like every week since I published my book, almost every week I get an entrepreneur telling me he has this kind of situation. So having the legal advisor and the CFO neutral or not colored by a specific VC is very important. Again, it's in early stage, and most of the time, it sounds like a non-interesting topic. I mean, the lawyer, well, he does contracts, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in 90% of the time. But if things happen, if you don't have someone who is
So like I guess note like pay special attention to like who controls, like I guess VC likes to get veto rights and control rights and many rights, and so just what, pay special attention to those specific areas in the investment documents.
yeah, so okay, it goes back to the legal advisor. If you have a legal advisor, and I'm very lucky, I'm with a partner, Jonathan Eran, he's in Meitar. I'm with him 15 years. He's a super professional, super experienced, and super straight. So it comes down when you negotiate with the VCs and all these small, like little terms in the company bylaws and etc. These are very important. So you need to have a legal advisor who will make sure that they are all in place. I'm not suggesting, because it won't happen, that you will learn and understand each and every item, which would be great. But you should have this lawyer which takes into account your interest and the company's interest while negotiating with the VCs. So all these veto rights, board seats, board agenda, etc. All these, this is practically the constitution of the company. You need to make sure that what's written there makes sense, and no one looks at it until something happens.
Yeah.
So getting a good legal advisor that will handle this is critical. It's worth the time investing in it. Yeah.
And do you think that there's a difference, I mean, based on your experience and so between, you know, VC partners who were founders and entrepreneurs versus those who were not? Do you feel that there's a difference? Do you think that there's a difference?
There's absolutely a difference. So I'm not talking about investment skills or things like that, but from my perspective, someone who has been in the ring, who has been a founder, has a more, I would say, emotional and a mental sympathy with the founder, can understand where you're coming from. And I see a lot of value in it. And from my experience, again, I take everything personally. That's my style, and I think that that's entrepreneurs. You know, we take everything personally, and if an investor doesn't call back, you know, we label him as someone who doesn't understand the business, and we take everything personally. VCs, they're business guys. If you don't answer their phone call, they want even more to meet you. So here, I think that you can't cover all the angles with lawyers and stuff. So having someone who has already been there increases the chances that when things become rough, you'll have someone who say, "Hey, listen, I've been there. I'm on your side. I want to help you." And these are things that you can, you hear a lot of podcasts and you can talk to a lot of people and you can read a lot of books, but until you've been in the ring and you've been the entrepreneur that feels the stomach that you don't have salaries in to pay in 2 months, or that you feel that you need to spin the company because things are, someone who hasn't been there can't really relate to this kind of situations. You can't. You can explain and you can think that you can relate. Having someone that's been there, I think, is a huge advantage. So this is something that I would highly recommend looking at. If there is a VC with several partners, I would go for the one who's been a founder. And in general, that's I think is a great idea, because being a founder, I think it humbles you,
Yeah.
because you understand that many things are like sliding doors, or could have been totally different in just a fraction of luck, or a meeting that went well, or so you kind of understand, okay, I'm not that kind of a big shot, and it could have turned out, and I have friends that things worked out differently for them. So it kind of humbles you and you understand it, and I think you can be more supportive for founders.
And I guess it also investors who are founders remember that they do not make the company successful or unsuccessful. They are just, just passengers on the car and
Right.
in the car. I mean, they can be helpful. Of course, they can ruin the company, but they're not the founders, which is, I guess, very important for everyone to understand, where they are. Um,
Yeah, I think, in the podcast, everyone talks the talk. Every investor in the world says, okay, it's the founder's company and the founders are leading. Everyone talks. But in the board meetings, you see the difference. So I think that, and that's how I behave with the startups that I work with, invested in. I'm a resource. I'm not here to manage the company or to tell you how to manage the company. You can use me as much as you want, but it's your company. I put my bet on you, and I'm not coming in to okay, let's turn things around and show you how to do it. No, because this is the magic sauce of the founder, that he has the passion. That's also why I tell early entrepreneurs sometimes have the fear of revealing their vision or their first deck, and they're afraid. I strongly believe that, people are not good enough at doing what's on their table. So to fear that someone will steal your vision and will have the passion to make it happen, if you have the passion, that's the magic sauce that overcomes experience and everything.
yeah.
So yeah.
I completely agree. And I want to, have just a quick, um, like a quick discussion. We don't have much time, but talking about passion, I want to talk for a second about your book.
Mhm.
So, we mentioned it, and I guess it correlates to your personal experience as well. But also, I wanted to ask, like, I mean, obviously you had this passion to write the book about all things that, had you had in your personal experience, but what I guess was the most important takeaway that you wanted your readers to have when reading your book without, like, doing a spoiler to the book?
Yeah. So when I sold my shares 5 years ago and retired, I said, okay, I need to put this on a I need to write this down, and I didn't know which format and how it will go, and I kind of met entrepreneurs, and everyone said, okay, wow, we wish we would have heard of it. And my passion was say, okay, I'm going to write it down and I'm going to give it away to every startup dreamer guy who would want to hear about it. And I was working on it for 2 years, and then a publisher came along, and you know, suddenly it opened up to a wider audience. And so going back to the passion of writing it, obviously there's no money in books. I don't know if you know, but I didn't know that. If you want to make money, don't write books, okay? Even the most successful authors in Israel, they need to have another job. An author in Israel makes 1 or 2 shekels per copy, and a bestseller sells a few thousand. That's it. So
So
it's,
go to high tech first and then write a book about
yes, that's the recommended way. So my passion is to expose this to as many people as possible for several reasons. One is that people that maybe, you know, could get some inspiration to do their jump in the water, do the next move in their career or in their life, it would be great. Obviously, it's not a personal development book. It's a fiction novel book, but from the reaction I get, it sometimes gives this kind of push. But also things that really got me excited is getting from entrepreneurs that, you know, in our industry, it's fake it till you make it big time. And I believe in it. And this is how you should behave. You're going into a meetup or some kind of a founders meeting. Everyone is doing fabulous. Everyone is doing great. And when you talk to people, everyone is making, it seems like you're the only one who is grinding and suffering. And it has a lot of emotional toll when you go home and you lie down and you say, wow, everyone else is doing amazing. And I'm bumping my head against the wall. And this is the feeling I had for 15 years. Although it was very successful, still I had this feeling. And what I realized, and I get on daily basis feedback from startup people and from others, is that it's a feeling that many of us feel today, especially in the Instagram life, and especially in the tech scene, where this is the kind of this is how it's supposed to be perceived, and I can understand it. When you're building a startup, you need to convey everyone that you're a big success and everything is going great. It has an emotional toll, and this is what I try to surface with this kind of story. And so maybe this could be something that supports people. But the number one reason was I wanted something that would be fun reading on a plane or whatever. And I'm very happy with the way it turned out. And now, just in the last few weeks, I've been receiving interest in making a TV series out of it, like one of the streamers. And so it's my new startup, and it's taking off, and it's amazing for me. And it's very encouraging that you can find new passion totally off guard from different places that you come
So I
from.
guess many people have this few points in their life that they said, this is so crazy, I'm going to write a book about it.
Yeah,
And he actually went and did it.
highly
So
recommended.
yeah, so this is the book. Yeah. And someone asked in the chat, in which languages is the book and audiobook? Like,
So yeah, so this is a pain point. It's now in Hebrew. It's in print, digital, and audio. And what I learned is that translation, a good translation, is a process of maybe 8 to 9 months at least. So I'm in the process, but it will take some time until it will be in English. And I have also requests in German and also in Chinese. So it will be probably next year. Yeah, so if you don't want to do like a chat GPT translation, and I feel that I need to do something better, then it will take more time.
awesome. So we're almost out of time. Just one final question, Raanan, if I may. If you could give your 30-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
So, going back, I think I was very fortunate that I had my back against the wall. Because frankly, if I would back then been working in a Google, Facebook, Wix, or some kind, and things were going great, I didn't know if I would ever make the move. And it's fine. But what I'm trying to say is that if you have a passion for something, either building a company or starting a new career or something, just like the slogan that just do it. Taking risks, I strongly believe in taking risks as long as they don't destroy you, okay? If you don't face a risk where if it won't turn out, then you will be destroyed, then, just go for it, do it. And even if you, fall down, dust yourself up and go ahead. So I would tell myself, just do it.
Awesome. Raanan, thank you so much for your time. That was like an epic session. I'm sure people loved it. I loved it. It was awesome. I warmly recommend everyone to buy and read the book. You can find it on Raanan's website. And thank you all for joining, and thank you very much, Raanan, for your time.
Thanks, Eran. Thanks everyone. And I'm accessible on the network and everywhere, so feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.